This has been a 4-year process. I know that there's a lot of information out there, but the Capital Improvement Committee for the last 4 years has had an athletic complex, turf field, line item in it. It was actually at a cost of $60,000 originally. And at the May 2019 town meeting this year, through the recommendation of a committee that was put together and the school committee, it was put towards the front of the capital requests by the one school committee, approved by the capital committee, the FinCom, Board of Selectmen, and town meeting. It was up to $20,000 to go out. We did make contact with 4 different companies. We only received 1 quote back at just under $20,000 to give us a general scope and sequence of what turf and athletic complex in Norton would look like. So why did we put it forth to begin with? About 4 years ago, we started to see some significant issues with field usage because we started extra sports. In particular, we've added lacrosse. We've added an entire group of middle school sports. As you all know, the middle school sports are 100% paid for by parents, no money from the operating budget. And then besides the hockey and so on and so forth, we've added a bunch of other sports. But the impact on the field became practice and play. You also know that within the Tri-Valley League and in the surrounding community, we're one of the last communities that does not have any type of a turf field. It's also important to recognize, for the record, a couple of other pieces of information that are important. The first is the debt exclusion of 2011 for the high school, which included $650,000 for the bleachers and track, sound system. The poles were $8,400, but the lights were within the operational budget donated. And then power to the concession stand that came in at $7,000. We have no intentions of touching anything to do with the bleachers, the sound system, as part of this plan. So in general, that's where the breakup of the money is. So the track, based upon I wasn't here for it, but based upon my quick math, came in somewhere around just under $400,000 to put it in. So that's what was part of that debt exclusion. So just to have some record information for those that have questions about that. Once we got the money, then we went out and hired Gale Associates, which is pretty well established. How about if we do this? How about if we do this? What if we do this? Can I just talk? Pretty loud. You hear me on camera? Yep. Be the first time somebody has it. So we put the committee together. It did involve every local activity in town that's involved with our schools. So in other words, baseball, soccer, we're all invited as part of this, including at that time we had 2 different youth football programs, and we communicated as much as possible to folks. Since then, we've actually added some folks, and some folks have gone off of it, some people have resigned. So we took all of this information forward and we gave it to the professionals. Gale Associates has worked with every major field renovation and turf field complex throughout the state. They're a 30-plus, 40-plus year company that now has really been concentrated in this area. I've actually dealt with them with building projects in my hometown where I reside when I used to be an elected member of the school committee. So they're a very reputable company. So to see them come forward was kind of a cool thing, considering they're the people that bring their A game. So what we said is we got together and said, what are we going to do? And we started right away with the idea that we wanted to try not to revitalize discussions about why anyone should have to repay for anything again, right? The comment about the $650 that I said earlier for the track and the bleachers and all of that, because it hasn't been that long. When I leave Norton someday or get fired or whatever happens, every decision I've made will be second-guessed. So my comments are not about second-guessing my predecessors and the people that did it for the reasons that they had to do it. But I can assure you it was a bad decision not to go with a turf field on day one. Especially because the cost would have been approximately $400,000 or so more than what you actually put into that area. That said, as I said earlier, every decision I make or thing I bring forward will, on July 1st after the year I leave, be second-guessed. So that's part of the process. And sometimes you just just have to do what you have to do in order to get something done. Our football field's in tough shape. It comes down to that. When I got here, one of the things that I realized is I saw sand next to a track. That's one of the biggest no-nos around a track ever, is the idea of sand. So one of the first things, thanks to the town, to working through Keith and the highway department, we actually were able to pave that entire area. Our concession stand cannot really make any food. It does not have running water, refrigeration, all of that stuff. We can't get a Board of Health clearance without some type of sewerage and so on and so forth. So what we did is we took all of these issues and then the back of the current Yale School, which is where most of our practices take place, and or games for some of the soccer games, lacrosse games even, and for baseball. And then the small diamond for softball, which is probably the best field of all that area. And what we started to look at and notice is all of the divots. It's my understanding that past history that's been used a little bit for, if you will, dumping some tree stumps, filling in the holes that were there, and so on and so forth. On the back end, it's pretty wet. So we looked at all of that, and that's when we started to take a look at what should this look like if we're going to be moving forward. So we started with what I would call, what I always bring to the table, and some of you in the audience know, which is my job is to bring an A game, and if we get a B, we moved forward. It's not to start with a C and end up with a D. And that's the way I've always approached my position when it comes to long-term planning and trying to find solutions. So what we did is we went with option A, which is the option before you. So as you're looking at this, what you want to look at is here's your high school, here's your current situation of your current field and track, bleachers here, here's your baseball diamond, parking lot coming out, here's the current the small softball field in this area. This is my office. This is all the back of the Yale, and then here's what's called the pit field. For those of you that are involved with the town sports, you'll know exactly what that is. Option A starts really with everything behind the Yale School is a full complex. It's all turf, tennis courts, and all lit. The high school here is a, if you will, repaving, updating of the track, but it stays 6 lane, and this is just a natural field that has some touch-ups done to it. It comes in at a cost, this is option A, where also here, your baseball field, and then your multi-purpose fields are here, and then your softball field, tennis courts, and then you finish here with the pit field as well as a turf. In the handout that you have, this is an estimated cost of $3.8 million. This has contingency already in it. So you've got contingency for changes and all of that that typically happens in building out anything built into it. I will also assure you that this company, Gale, has come in under budget with their projects after they go out, because remember this is an estimate, then you have to put a bid together, then you go out, if the taxpayers approve it, you go out and then you get a price for the actual work. So this doesn't necessarily mean that this is the company we'll be working with, because we have to go through that process. But this whole, we're not making this turf and new lights and all of that, it was dead on arrival with the school committee. They kind of just felt we need to come to the table with something that's going to resolve our issues long term. When you go to, so there's your cost, breaks it down, track and field reconstruction at $2.2 million. That's an important number to remember, because none of this makes it a turf field at the high school. Okay? The behind the Yale, as I call it, is the 4.3 number. Amenities building and a covered pavilion. Again, we went to the A game, $988,000. You can probably guess that as superintendent, I'm probably not thinking I'm going to do that. Okay, but this is the A game where we'd all look at. Tennis court construction, additional parking, and synthetic turf pit field in the back at $1,083,000. So there's your total cost and how it comes down. When you move to option B, there's only one difference. And the difference is that here, the baseball field, instead of going this way, it's going out. Now this is not recommended because of the way lighting, and the sun, and lights, and all that other stuff. And again, the regular natural baseball field, the softball field stays natural, because we think that these fields are right now in pretty decent shape, if you will. Long term, they're in okay shape. I'd say better than fair, if not good. Maybe some potential drainage issues down here in the future, but not necessarily something that would cost us 6 figures. And again, this just continues the same situation that we had before. The change here is slight. It goes down to 9.285 million, where you see the biggest change really just in the reconfiguration of the actual field. Again, not necessarily recommended because it does nothing with the high school as well. When you go to option C, option C takes a look at the 6-lane track and keeps it, just does some upgrades to it. But it does make the high school football field a turf field. Now, as a diagram, as a design here, you really can't tell it, but besides the lights and everything that would go in, the issue here is that we've got some concerns about how wide this field is going to be in creating appropriate scenes. So that would be something that once this project would move forward, we'd have to be able to get some more understanding of. The big change. This was a recommendation that I made last minute to provide this area here where the current baseball field is to become the Norton Senior Center / Community Center. I'll get back to that in a minute. Because of that, with extra parking here, concerns about all traffic, of course, and all that, and other concerns. We moved the tennis courts here. As you know, there's some good connections between tennis courts and games, physical play, that is being used now. Configuration goes back to the original, again the same, and then the baseball field has to be moved here, but we add with that an actual multi-purpose field in the back as part of the pit. So, from the school department's view only, I don't run the senior center. The senior center director has her responsibilities, her philosophy, and we can agree to disagree and still be best of friends. So I just want to make sure that people know that. The reason why I put this forward, besides it being a zero-cost option for that building, is, and some people could say, well, you're actually zero-costing, but you're actually costing us more here. Yeah, you could say that. Was, I have a very strong philosophy that seniors should be with students, and students should be with seniors. That is not the philosophy that everybody has. However, in your community, your senior director is also responsible for human services. So she's dealing with all kinds of folks who may need services. And so there was some concerns about not only confidentiality, but also certain people, if you will, being on school grounds, which, for the record, happens all the time, but I understand what folks are saying. So this comes in educationally as a positive, but it comes in at a higher price of just over $10 million. And again, that's because you're seeing the turf field go to 2.6. So literally you're adding about $400,000 to make it a turf field from the 2.2 cost that you had in the prior plan. And then all the way down, as you see, the pit field becomes more expensive by about $200,000 because you're now creating it as a diamond and a multi-purpose field. This is option, by the way, the way to read the options when you're walking around later is right here at the bottom. C101, and then the letter is what's represented for D. So if you take a look at option C for a second, I want to go back to that. A discussion that also happened here was, if the senior center didn't go here, could it actually go to where the pit field is? Because there's Seminary Way and the potential for creation of a road out to Sumner, I believe it is, or Summer? Summer. Okay, thank you. Again, not my decision. I know the members of the building committee here tonight, but I can probably say that both are somewhat, if not dead on arrival. But it was a feeling of trying to, in my opinion, educationally make this a better situation. And I'll tell you where it came from. You go to Swampscott, their senior center is in the middle of their high school. You go to Plymouth, it's about 25 feet from their high school. And the collaboration between students and seniors, I think, is an area that this community could really use. That's an opinion, it's mine, it doesn't necessarily belong to anyone else, but as somebody who was brought up not only by parents, but having the ability to have my grandparents with me until they died recently, and well into my 40s, I learned something about the elderly community and senior citizens that I just believe every kid should be involved with. And it allows for our kids to do internships, for seniors to be involved in classrooms, and so on and so forth, and also use these facilities. So somebody said to me something about, would the senior citizen be able to use the facilities? And I said, well, those are things that have to be worked out with the school committee, but I can tell you right now that if I can give seniors free passes to games and musicals, why can't we have a pass system that allows any senior who's a registered member of the senior center to be able to use these facilities during the day? Kids aren't going to be out there all the time. And if they were, there's a lot of way for us to police that stuff. Kids are great, so are seniors. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people in society today don't think that way. Those are my opinions. So option D became revitalizing the entire area here. This is all new lights, 8-lane new track, turf field, don't have to move, might have to slightly move, but not have to get anything new to do with the seating arrangements and all of that. Again, it includes the synthetic fields here. It includes the amenities building, which is actually found right here, the extra parking here. All areas that I think could definitely be discussed as part of this project. We've done a really good job, thank you to the Highway Department and Keith, on when we've had to use new paving and new parking areas. Keith has come in with his guys and done it for $20,000-$25,000 instead of going out for $100,000 or more. So we know that these are the areas where we could work. I happened to be at the boys soccer tournament game in Norwell. I actually saw a pavilion that I think could become a community effort to build something and put it together instead of just doing it this way. But again, these are all questions that have to be addressed by other folks, not just me. Tennis courts construction, additional parking. The pit field, though, gets an upgrade, but it stays as a natural field. It is not moved to synthetic. So that's the first time that you see that change there. This comes in as option D at a cost of, estimated cost of $9.5 million. And again, contingencies are built into this. It has to go out to bid if in fact it gets approved and so on and so forth. And there's your breakdown. Again, you don't see a huge increase at the top on the first one, 2.8 million. Where you start to see the decline here from the last prices, this is only 707. Now, if you were mindful, the original pit field going to a turf is about 400. It's less than $400,000 more than this. But again, we're playing with these different numbers to try to show folks as many different options as can be available. The final vote to move forward on any option comes from the school committee, but the building, the turf and that complex committee has been giving its recommendations all along. That's the reason why we're up to all of these options. This is option E. So I made a comment the other day that more than likely A, B, C, and D are dead, but we took them through the process. And the reason is we started to say to ourselves a couple of different things. First of all, that the 8-lane track and synthetic turf construction at the high school is a must. And that includes lighting. And that the synthetic turf behind here, all lit up with lighting, is also a must. They're musts for us, because this is where our students currently practice, and this is where we have some significant issues. So now we have places to practice. Again here, the discussion about the senior community center is still there. And what does that mean? This comes in at a cost of $7.2 million. So this is your lowest option so far in all the options that we've discussed. It also has the least amount that's done to it. There's no pavilion here, there's no parking here. This comes down to just a basic with lighting on both ends. It doesn't include any type of stands on the multi-purpose field in any of these options. We've kept them flat, to be quite honest, to this point. So then we moved, to option F. There's an F1 and F2, even though there's only one map, and it's a slight change, but there's a significant cost. In option F before you, you still have the 8-lane track. You've got the baseball diamond, baseball field as a multi-purpose. You continue here with the tennis courts. There are no lights anywhere here. sorry, take that back. There's no lights here at all, or at the tennis courts. Okay? So lit, no lighting, no lighting. The difference between F1 with no lights is it comes in at 9.249.176. With lights, believe it or not, with the lighting, it comes in at 10.4. It's actually our highest cost estimate. And part of it is because you also have the baseball diamond area that you're doing at the same time. That's option F2. Based on cost alone, I don't see myself making that recommendation. But it's there for folks to consider that we've looked at many options as possible. Lights, no lights is the main difference. And then G is our latest. This was after yet another meeting of the complex committee plus the school committee, just giving insight. So what happens here? So in G, we continue with the 8-lane track and all of that here, the lights, the turf field, and so on. The baseball diamond is what it is. We have added the complex section, if you will, here with no major changes. The tennis courts would have no lights. And the synthetic turf field here would have no lights. So you're going lights, all lights, and then no lights, no lights. For those of you asking or have a question about bathrooms, the whole system is based on portables at an operating cost to the facilities account based on this projection. We're not really loving the idea of building bathrooms for a number of different reasons. Sewage costs, attachments, and to be quite honest, everything to do with liability and who gets in and out of it and so on and so forth. Porta potties, you sometimes have to worry about rollovers and stuff like that, but you don't have to worry about some of the other stuff. The cost estimate on this is $8.6 million, $8,667,499. Again, 2.8 up top. The synthetic doesn't change. The pit field does. It's back to the $1,083,000 from the first option, and we did put back the tennis courts. Let's talk about why. The tennis courts were put back in because under consideration is my understanding that when the Campbell House went down in front of the middle school, and it has a playground there. I think you all know what I'm talking about off of the main drag. There's a potential discussion that could take place where we would offer the tennis courts at the middle school, potentially school committee needs to vote, deliberate, all that stuff, and provide that to the building committee as an option for parking if in fact a senior center, community center were to go in that location, because you can't really build anything there without either A, having some discussions about the playground, B, the site, so you can have a bigger site, which then leads to discussion that we haven't had, which is moving the playground onto school sites, a different site, and that could cause a lot of commotion. But again, I think these are all discussions that need to take place. Instead of people getting angry, we need to talk about it, see if it's good or bad or not good. Again, we love children in the school department, so we have some flexibility to that. Those discussions are discussions that would have to take place. There is some cost that goes with that. I know that the school committee's had a lot of discussions about trying to upgrade the playground at the Yale School, so because it is our playground that's, if you will, needs the most work. Maybe there's a way for us to actually collaborate and do something there. I don't know, and I think we're a few weeks and months away from having those discussions, but maybe they should be had. And there's still an option that the pit field, there's still an option that the pit field here could actually bring down the total cost. And there could be a discussion that if this weren't dead on arrival as a senior center, that there's a potential we could change this into something that houses some type of playground community, or that we take a look and see long term, could we potentially just provide that and not have to spend any money here. Baseball is very controversial in softball when it comes to turf fields. To be quite honest, in some cases it depends on who the head coach is. Some people have strong. We would be setting ourselves up to varsity baseball field, varsity baseball field, varsity softball field, varsity softball field. We'd actually have two natural, two turf. You can't get any better than that. Because what that does is let's make sure we keep our upgrades going. But if in fact we get into trouble with the season, which we do every spring, we can go right into turf after a rainy day or a
or any couple of days, and not have to reschedule it. Right now, what we typically do is we eliminate home days and have to travel, or we have to try to find a day in the calendar. Those are really the two options. And traveling for us costs us more money. Not included in these plans that we want to have discussions about is with all of the lighting, I'm really looking at solar. I'm looking at long-term. We're also potentially looking at going out for a procurement. I've taken a look at all of our buildings in terms of needs, specifically around electricity. Electricity costs are only going up, they're not going to be coming down. So we're looking at portals here and here as a way to potentially feed lighting systems. So that'll be another phase of this project that could potentially happen as well. And that's just a phase that takes a little longer for us to figure out what we want to do with it. We have a community forum tonight. We have a community forum on the 9th of December. I apologize for those of you that wanted to come Monday, but I had a conflict. We are currently looking at a recommendation to the full school committee after the first of the year, and then the politics of all of this belongs to people way above my pay grade. All those citizens that give up all of their free time, don't get paid a penny, get yelled and screamed at, they're the ones that are going to have to make the decision. So that's the building committee in terms of the needs of what they've been told they need to do, the school committee in terms of this, and then the board of selectmen on how they decide a question or questions go forward, now, later, or never. Questions, thoughts, concerns, ideas? Yes, sir.
Question about the baseball field. Currently, the baseball field as it stands today, until the end of the year, maybe in the summer, because that's north, that's west.
Right.
The sun is right in the eyes of the pitcher and the
Yep.
outfielders.
Yep.
Our baseball field is actually backwards. Home plate should be the southwest corner. The median line going through home plate, pitcher's mound, to second base and center field to the northeast. If you look at the college and the way their baseball field is positioned, theirs is correct.
Right.
Ours is wrong. I just think if we're going to invest money in nice fields, that we should get the position right.
Yeah, the issue that we have is we're going to have some space issues in terms of how much we potentially have to shorten the field, and that's a concern that's come up. So that's another reason why, you know, having multiple fields doesn't hurt us, gives us options. You also mentioned something about, you know, the time of the day and all of that. These are community fields. These are not just Norton Public Schools fields. We brought people to the table from all the organizations for a reason. And that reason is my recommendations going forward. Again, school committee vote that would need to take place. I would think it would take place sooner than later so that the community gets it. And that would be that if you are an organization that resides in this town with students, citizens of this town, they could be kids who go to another school, but they reside in this town, I'm not sure that we should be charging the heck out of them to use these fields. I think we need to come up with a plan. We also know that our closeness to 495, 95, 24, both on north and south sides, or east and west sides, is also very good for this to become revenue. Turf fields and complexes are bringing in a minimum of 50,000 to as much as 200,000 from third-party organizations just for the summertime and into the early fall after hours. And if this is lit up, we're talking about significant potential for us, and that's a cost of anywhere from $150 an hour to $250 an hour for the rental, the right to use a field, not a complex. So if you're going, let's just say 150, you could be going 150 here, 150 here, and 150 here an hour for some of the organizations. I used to be a coach, and I worked with the AAUs and all of that stuff in different sports. They're looking for spaces they don't have. So there's a potential that we would have revenue coming in that would go into a line item. Recommendation would be a line item of the facilities account of the school department, which means it can only go towards facilities. And in this case, the line item would be for the complex, so that we try to build that number up so that when we need, which we will need to, buy the appropriate cleaning machines and all that that's used. You just don't use a regular lawnmower on these, I can assure you. We have, the goal is we have funding that can help to take care of that, because these need to be done and upgraded on a yearly basis. These fields are starting to see 12 to 15 years of usage, not just 8 to 10, because the products is just getting better that are being put down. I've learned more about turf fields and between sewage and turf fields and asbestos. I've had quite the year. Other questions? Thank you for that. We'll continue to harp on that with them. Yes, sir.
Assuming this, just assume for a second, this gets approved and it's built, what is your next major concern for capital expenditures at the school department?
Great question. The only other thing we have on the MSBA, first of all, we count on those major capital items to go through MSBA project, the Mass School Building Authority. And the reason for that is that we're getting 54 cents on the dollar in return. The window project is that, your roof at the, and so on. You know what I'm talking about. So our major one that we have on that list currently is the Yale Elementary School's heating system, because it's still partially steam. Now, the way that that works is we'd have to do a statement of interest and go through that process. I don't think, and I'll give you an example, a perfect example. We thought for sure that the statement of interest we put in for the 3 windows was 5 years out. We got rated by the MSBA, graded by the MSBA after 2 reviews as top 10% worst windows in the Commonwealth. And that's why we ended up getting the grant. It's too much water coming in, too much heat going out, and I can tell you, when the window project is done, please call. I'd love to walk you through, maybe something we all should do with the community. The windows are quieter, the noise level, the heat staying in, it's cooler in the summertime already, and that was before shades were even installed. Unfortunately, we ran into a situation as well at the Yale School that we didn't run into with the asbestos at the other schools, but we're trying to deal with that issue now. But that is the major project. We don't see our capital plan is based on 5 years. We don't have a roof on there right now for 5 years. We've done our roof reviews. The high school's in great shape. The middle school, after years of trying to fix that, we finally got it done. It would probably be one of the ones that'd be on that list. But again, those are not $8–9 million items. A roof at an elementary school, for example, at the Hay would come in easily under $2.5 million. You're talking about maybe $1 million to the local. Might not even be anything to do with the debt exclusion. More so just long-term borrowing, but again, depending on the finances of what's going on the books versus what's coming off the books. But we don't see, again, something could happen tomorrow, but we don't have any significant capital item that is in the 6 figures, 7 figures, or high 6 figures, 7 figures that would need to be prioritized within the next 5 years. Again, the boiler could break tomorrow morning at any of our schools, including the new ones here. And we do utilize 2 processes. If you're a new building, you go through the MSBA building process, or you file for an accelerated repair. It's interesting they call it accelerated because it's been about 36 months, but I guess that's accelerated. That's better than a project which could take 3 to 5 years. Yes, sir.
Fountains Day, is that out if the turf field comes in?
We would have to find another way, yes.
Okay.
A couple of different places that we could consider.
Okay. You said it's all set up and it's easy now.
Yes, but the last thing you want to do is put lit anything on turf.
It would just be the people, I mean, the fire department could be moved over, but that's...
Yeah.
The soccer behind the current middle school, would that come over here or would that stay here?
Well, our hope is to work, we spend 0 on those fields. That's totally done by Norton Youth Soccer,
Right.
100%. Every electrical bill, watering, everything, they're here tonight. I can assure you that they're spending a significant amount of money there every year. So yes, we would be opening these up to them. We would potentially be in charge of them just left cutting those fields and taking over, absorbing some of that. But that could also be used for practice and games up here, and vice versa. The idea is, it's always interesting because we're one of the only middle schools in the area that actually has a full-on middle school program. So we would still need to utilize some of those fields for our own teams because our high school and middle school practically play at the same time. But when it comes to the community groups, we want the community groups involved as part of this. And I know that there's a couple of other fields in town that actually don't belong to the school department. We don't control them. So I don't know if those would be up for debate and discussion as well. Follow up?
Yeah, well, new question. The senior center, is that a done deal as far as whatever plan that was? I mean, did they come in and they already say no? I heard,
No, I have
the
never
words that it was going to
No,
be.
I believe the building committee is doing its due process and justice to try to find the right place. So there's discussions about a town hall, there's discussions about a senior center. I'm not part of those day-to-day discussions. What we did literally in a small group meeting is I said, educationally, I really like the seniors here. Why don't we put them on the baseball field? Walk into the building. And I'll tell you, if you look at the Boston Globe and type in Swampscott High School, you'll see that they have seniors, citizens, tutoring high school students who need help. Getting a tax write-off for it, right? Things that we can do now anywhere. But it's so close and right there. There's a story about a woman taking an AP class again. She's like in her 80s. She's just sitting there like a student, like she was me, like a kid at 17, taking an AP calc class again. Revitalizing her mind, getting it going, being part of that classroom. She takes the test, they get graded, she's part of the classroom. That's another story. Same thing with the music, same thing with the arts. We don't have that, and I think this is the type of community where we should be doing some of that. Here and in the back. Oh, here.
I just want to clarify, Mark, for you. We just, at Fall Town Meeting, we just approved money for an independent company to come in and look at areas where the senior center or town hall could go. So that's already gone out. The RFP or whatever it was, bids are coming back and they'll be opened on December 4th. And then they'll get to work trying to figure out where the best location is. From there, it goes to the building committee for their review, and then ultimately it comes down to the board of selectmen.
So then
Yeah, so it's not.
So they're looking for it at a T between 123 and 140.
Right.
So
Yep,
this,
yep.
I heard about this idea, but I like that idea, what you were saying. But they gave up on it,
I don't know if it's a giving up on it more than there's a, I don't want to speak for the director, but I know where she's coming from. I mean, as an administrator for the school department, I have to act as a part of your community, even though I don't act here, but I really have to protect the school department because that's what I'm hired to do. I think she's doing the same thing, so I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't want to knock her for that, and I've already told her that. I just think that educationally, I see tremendous benefit. But there are negatives. For example, where the heck's the parking going to go? Or forget the parking. When the driving in and out of that building is already, out of this building, as some of you know, is already a nightmare. So there's that question. That's where the pit field in the back came up. Just trying to get to the one that actually shows.
The director did not like the senior center right in between where our current baseball field is, just because of the community outreach. She didn't like the lack of privacy, because you would be right on top of the school and the fields.
that's what I heard.
Yes,
But like you say, Sherry, they're opening up bids in a couple of weeks,
correct.
right on the T of 123 and 140.
They're going to look at it.
It's a done,
Yes.
So, and let me add to that too, because we talked about this specifically at the Board of Selectmen's meeting. There are concerns, like some confidentiality and privacy issues, but one of the things that I said too is that this model separates the community center from the town hall, and we can always take those services, which are existing in a town hall right now, and keep them there. So there are options. So to your original question, this is not off the table. Our charge to the BBC was you come back to us with options, we want to see them, and this very well may be one of them.
Thank you.
The other thing I'd like to add to this is no one knows how this is going to move forward in terms of the discussions about a vote for a senior center, a vote for a town hall, a vote for this, or this doesn't make it, or I know that there's a lot of us versus them in a lot of communities, but I see it more here than I do in a lot of others. And I think a lot of this discussion has been, how do we try to resolve an issue that everyone's having? I walk into your town hall pretty regularly. It's not good. Your employees that work for you shouldn't be working there. And clearly we need a senior center. You're a growing population. When you have a growing population, you should try, as I said earlier, growing up with grandparents, take care of those and support them. The mind is one of the things that can easily go away, never mind just your physical activity. And I think these are the type of things that help people in general as a community. But I'm a little bit of an idealist and a leftist, so I guess that makes me. Other questions? Yes?
Can you let people know the difference as to why you looked at the 6-lane track versus the 8-lane track and the benefits of us saving money be on.
Yeah, so for example, we know right off the bat that with local colleges and universities, the 8 lane's gonna make us money, just because of the ability to have events here. Same thing with anything to do with turf baseball and Wheaton College. And I don't want to speak for Wheaton, but those are the type of activities that we think we would see. The 6th lane doesn't allow for any state meets to take place. You know this better than I do, as a parent and a person involved. And the concern that we have is what's the long term of this track. And so I'm going to be hopefully around for a few more years. I don't want to come back and say, oh, by the way, the track is now going too, and we need more money. To me, that doesn't make any sense. Do it right the first time, and make sure you have preventative maintenance. I mean, you walk into this building right now, this building is still as clean and doing as well as the day that you guys cut the ribbon, because we're spending the money on things we haven't done before. We're spending 6 figures on preventative maintenance in our elementary schools, in our middle school and high school now. It was 0 7 years ago when we got here as a team. We were spending nothing. We weren't cleaning the filters the way they should be cleaned and so on and so forth. The air quality was fine, but long term, any of you that know mechanical machinery, it needs to be worked on, and preventative maintenance has to be done. We have all of that. It's not sexy, as I always say when I put the money into it, but you want to make sure that 10 years from now, the building is looking as good as it did the day that you opened. Go to any vocational school in the state. Go ahead, walk into any vocational school in the state. You can eat off the floor, because they spend the money on the preventative maintenance within their buildings. And in K-12, we've had a poor history of that. Yes, sir.
So one minor benefit of moving the senior center here, is all our students are required to do community service.
Correct.
How easy would that be?
Yes. So we have community service, we have internships, we have students already doing it with the senior center. Our biggest issue that happens with students is travel, because remember, they're doing it during the period of the day. But here's something else. We have a lot more students now doing community service after hours. You know, we're working on some specialized program right now with some departments in town. I don't want to name them because it's not even close to done, where we're going to potentially run some classes with those departments in the evening for our students, and they're going to actually be able to get transcript credits to show not only are they doing it for service, because that's a component of it, but they're actually learning on the job and getting credit for it. And that just becomes another thing for our students when they're applying to 4-year colleges or 2-year colleges, or just entering the workforce. That actually might be a way for some of our students to be able to go work for a department in town or for a private company, because they've already earned some skill sets, some employability skills and all of that. And again, it is an idealistic perspective of what we should be doing for both sides, in my opinion. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Comment and a question. The first comment is in regards to the seniors. My son just was at the JCS for the last couple of years, and they had a program there, and I don't know if it's still there. I hope it is, where the seniors came in once a week and read to the kids. And that's a wonderful thing that was going on. I don't know if it goes on anymore. I hope it goes on and it's expanded.
K-5 regularly.
Yeah, and my question is, have we gotten to the stage where we have numbers what the debt exclusion would look like per resident, or is that going to be something that's going to be packaged all together?
That's going to be a process in itself, I think, and I would defer that to the folks that make that decision. You know, if I said it was this per household just for this, I would probably be accused if I'm trying to get in front of something.
I just didn't know.
I know that, but for me, it's about, I've been asked with the task of how do we resolve a significant problem that we have. A, B, what's the best plan to do it? And C, is it part of or not part of a bigger picture? That's really what I've been tasked to do. Yes?
Do you think the possibility of the senior center being part of the complex would influence ultimately which choice was made? Meaning, if you do right now, for 100% sure, the building committee said, yes, we want to be part of this, would you be inclined to choose one of the plans that included that, or do you think the school committee will pick overall which complex it is?
I think the school committee wants to have discussions with the community. That's what I think. I have 5 members of the school committee. 2 of them are here tonight. I know a couple wanted to make it, but they actually, I was just reading text. They couldn't make it because of stuff that came up. I think the school committee is trying to make this a community event instead of what we sometimes see. I'll defer to Sherry, who's on the committee.
So at our last meeting, we talked about the two proposals that we like the best right now are the F1 and the G. And the reason why is because it does give us 3 turf fields, because we're looking at long-term rentals. That's important to us to bring in some money. And we're also leaving that section over by the pit field open for a senior center if that's where it decides to go. So those 2 options, cost-wise, we originally came in at a $10 million number, so we tried to go back to the drawing board with the athletic complex committee, school committee, and try to come up with something that was more reasonable, but we are leaving it open, because if the senior center does fit there, we truly believe that that's a great plan. And, I'll go on, I've said it before at many other meetings, my full intention, and just full disclosure, I'm on school committee, the athletic complex committee. I sit on a permanent building committee as a representative from school committee. I think that's it. Oh, and capital improvement, just for full disclosure. My plan, what I would like to see, finally, for our town, 3 projects: town hall, senior center, athletic complex. 1 question, yes or no? We need to bring our town together. We need to stop the divide. We need to stop the fighting. So this project, the 3 projects, 1 question, yes or no, gets everybody something, and then we can finally start to understand when you work together, great things can happen in our little town of Norton, and the positive momentum continues. That is my hope. That is what I'm looking to do.
Other questions? Yes?
So, you mentioned if you go forward and people are renting out facilities, that money goes into a line item just to keep, do you have to do that? Like, is there any wiggle room to use some of the money to reduce
Yes.
sports fees?
It's a school committee decision on how to establish either a separate line item that could then go to town meeting, or to just use it under, it is our school department facility, to get the school committee to itemize under the facilities revolving account that funds for when they, for example, you can set it up where when you say, when you get to X number of dollars, the first percentage of dollars will go towards user fees. You can do any of that. That's up to them to decide how they want to do it. And I do think those will be questions that they're going to want to have prior to a vote taking place, so that people are understanding. And those are votes, yes, they could be changed by another school committee, like user fees can, but hopefully that's not what happens. Yes, sir.
Obviously, I like what Sherry had said, putting 3 together for 1. But if there's a delay on the school, I'm just going to say, put those together to a side, the town hall, and the senior center. Are you ready to go forward this spring?
We are, but I think I would defer to the school committee based upon what I hear from Sherry and what I've had with individual discussions with school committee members. I think that this is a group that wants to make this a community effort, not just we go forward. There's no, I'll give you an example. I've approached a major company for a donation, $1 million. They are considering it. Does it happen? I don't know. I could be coming back here a week from now and say it's happening. I could come back a week from now and say, nope, they're not giving us a penny. But we have approached, so that you can think of the way we're trying to think, we've approached things like naming the complex, okay? And going after companies that can easily, there is a community in Massachusetts where it was 100% done that way. There's another community nearby where, because they have 4 major statewide contractors who did it all at their cost. They just paid for materials and supplies. They just paid for materials and supplies. So there's different ways for us to try to approach this, yes.
Just one more thing. The chair of the PBC is also looking to move things forward so that they're ready to go for the spring for a vote. So they're moving things along and still trying to get to that so that this can all be done at one time together.
Right on top of each other.
Yeah.
And if you think of Monday morning quarterbacking, some of this could have been done with community conservation money if it had been passed in town 20 years ago. My hometown just moved $1.2 million. I pay about $46 a year, goes directly off into community conservation.
I'm on that committee. We're working on that.
All right, and what we did is, in the days that came out, that was a significant amount of matching funds from the state, because so many more communities have joined it. The money now from the state is less. But what it is kind of like a debt exclusion. It's a certain percentage, usually around 1%, sometimes 2%, and it goes directly only to that. It belongs to a committee, not the selectmen, and it can only be allocated through town meeting. And so in my hometown, which is a very blue-collar community, by passing that 15, 16 years ago, and the matching funds were a lot higher than they are now, we had an issue with the field in Stoughton as part of the new Stoughton High School, which was a $123 million project. And they wanted to add, and it wasn't part of the project, they wanted to add a community area next to the football field where people could go walk, a dog park, and all of that, at $1.2 million. Came out of the conservation, out of the Community Act. Because, as we all know, taxes are difficult for folks. Fixed income, people that are theoretically or vehemently against taxes, debt exclusion is usually there's better discussions because people know it's like, I know how much it's going to cost. It probably starts at one price and then it goes down. I know every time I go past that building or that park, I'm paying for that. I'm not paying for the superintendent's raise, you know, that type of stuff. But that's not what we have yet. But it's something that I'm glad to hear you're looking into, because there's some really long-term benefits to things like that because it's fixed. You can't just, you know, you can say it's forever, but at the same time, it's fixed for what it needs to go to. It doesn't get you into your question earlier about what are your big projects that you have. Potentially it takes care of a lot of these types of things. Question, yes, sir?
Grants?
None. That's great. Not only grants not available, we are looking at an area, and my guys, folks that work for me know this. There's some procurement acts out there, competitive procurement acts. One of them is actually done by Train. They've been doing a lot of it, where basically a company comes in and they take care of your, and they pay prevailing wage and all that stuff, so they're not anti this or that, but they're a company and they come in and basically they take care of the project from A to Z. So you don't have a contractor and a subcontractor and a subcontractor. You have a company and they do the whole thing from A to Z. Nobody's approached the Commonwealth of Massachusetts on a solar project also helping to pay off or to pay for or portionally pay for athletic complexes that are getting lighting and are saving, conserving not only electrical, but also water, right? Because you don't have to water these fields like a traditional field. So we've asked that organization, that company, to do some digging for us at no cost on, because eventually they would make the money. If we're in fact doing solar for lighting and we're doing turf, which means not needing regular water to water fields like you would, my friends here from New England Soccer know, then is there a way to offset that cost? And then the third part doesn't answer grants. We've also looked into the, it escapes me now, but we reached out to the Army Corps of Engineers to see if there's any connection for them, and that's not a project that they're considering. And we continue to, you know, Google the word grant fields and see if anything comes up. Yes, sir.
How long is the project expected to take, and depending on that, what impact might it have on the high school sports?
Yeah, so high school sports would have an impact. So one of the scenarios we have to figure out as this goes forward and we get closer to a decision is where do we start? So in the case of, do we start with the complex? The whole thing is a complex, but this new area here, therefore we just make do what we have here and or travel. If you take a look at any new high school building, I can only speak for my hometown, that's where I live, that's what I read about. You know, they just finished paying 30 football games on the road, and they're still playing this year out, so they're not due to be on that field. So that, yes, that could happen, and an operational cost to us. So that would be something that, you know, for next year, for example, let's say I had an inkling that this was happening, I'd probably create a line item that just said, you know, extensive travel for our teams, because our teams could be traveling more so than they do now. So instead of 9 games home, 9 away, we could be traveling 18, we could be talking to Wheaton, we could be talking to some of our local high schools. I know that's happened with a lot of districts.
Yeah.
Aaron?
Foxborough, when they built the turf, they built the track. That splits a lot of their soccer and lacrosse teams. So they went to Southeastern. Yeah, I think so. Track.
that's our vocational school, so of course we'd have discussions with them, and that's where we send our students, and their superintendent and I know each other very well, we're good colleagues. I'm sure those are the things that communities come together to support each other. It's good public relations for everybody too. But yeah, those are the type of things that we need. Oh, and the question of timetable, this is, if there was a vote, let's say in the spring, that means the allocation of funds starts July 1. That would mean we would probably have an RFP ready to go as soon as town meeting was over. Matt, I don't know if we have to wait until July 1st to put out the RFP, or if we can do it, I think it's within 15 days after town meeting or something.
RFP early and now we're working.
Yeah, so we could run the RFP early and not award, can't award until after July 1st. Because that's when the allocation actually, the funds actually come in. And that would be for any of these 3 projects. Yes, sir.
What kind of fees are you currently collecting in regards to sports? And I'm not talking about the students paying to play sports. You charge to somebody to use the field, is that the way I understand it?
Yeah, we predominantly, our biggest charge that comes in, and Wade is here, is going to be youth basketball with our gyms. That's our biggest, so there really isn't any money that we're losing there because they're using the gyms. In terms of Norton Youth, I know they're here, soccer, they're spending good amount of money. There's a potential for them to relax that amount of money because they're really running fields as, I mean, they're almost turf-like in some ways. But, you know, they're not spending $10,000 on those fields, guys. They're spending upwards of $40,000, $50,000. Thank you. They're shaking their heads. A year.
Do you think we've come off the rails a little bit as a school system where, you know, anybody here that's over 40 went to school, pretty much didn't pay anything? Now it's become a business where, and I understand the financial situation, and we all understand that money's tough to come by. Sports fees, charges to use the fields, charges to take the bus, you know. Is this a public education anymore? I mean,
so
why don't you just charge tuition?
Let me answer that.
How do we get back to a public education?
Great question.
That's the million-dollar question.
So everybody always wants to talk about demographics and how many businesses you have, and do you have a split tax system and all of that stuff. Those are all decisions way above where I am. We have a local school district where our scores are as good or better. They have 106 more students in kindergarten through 12th grade than we do pre-K through 12, excuse me. They spend $6.2 million more per year. They have no transportation fees, no athletic fees. They don't even have field trip fees.
And that's how it should be.
Right. I'm 51, almost 51. I remember those days. We collect, Matt, off the top of your head, 140,000 or so for athletics. Am I off? 280. Tells you how off I really am. And busing?
170.
Okay, so I reverse. So $175,000 collected in fees for busing on a $1.1 million budget for busing. And 280 collected on about 575, 580, 600,000 athletics. And don't forget that the entire middle school athletic program is paid for by parents. All we do is we collect the fee because it's easier for us to do that, and then we give them a bill for the rest, and they have to go out there and do their fundraiser, or in most cases, increase their fee.
What I'm saying is this has become the norm, and we're kind of like immune to it and used to it. I don't think it's the norm.
It is in Massachusetts. It is in Massachusetts. The norm in Massachusetts, I'll give you where they're not. 29 vocational agricultural high schools, not a single fee. It's in their budget. But remember, their budget is fixed. If you go to a finance committee meeting, I love vocational school, by the way. I love the ag, not being anti. But they don't even get a single question to the questions I have because their budget is set. So you can increase that budget for 90 kids by $90,000, $100,000. You can do that with the ag. The charter, you don't even get to see them. But we have to go in and defend every line item, rightfully so. It's not a fair system. Almost every community in the Commonwealth has some type of fees. My last district, I walked in 2008 as the principal of the high school, 7 to 12 building. We made a decision that in order to grow our student population, keep students in town, and be fair, we needed to put that into the budget. So we had to put 6 figures into the budget. Those are the decisions that we have to make at our level. Where do we take away from in order to do that? There is no, I mean, there are people that if you had that O word that we've had in the past, and it includes paying fees for somebody, they're no vote or right on arrival. They believe that this is the new norm, to use your phrase. It's the new norm, parents need to pay. Now, part of that is, anybody's 50 or older, maybe even late 40s, you weren't paying what we're paying now for all of these AAUs and private organizations and even the public ones, trying to just survive or make enough money to have good fields so that the kids can actually play on something that's you know, not some of the fields that some of us played in. So it's not a fair system. I mean, we could go on this forever. I would tell you that my football coach is standing right here. I mean, if it wasn't for our guys constantly moving the practice field, his guys, I mean, they're already eating dust and dirt. Baseball on that side, that's a dust field. And that's how we came up with this conclusion of needing to move forward with a plan. Maybe there's if we're on G, maybe there's an H, because there is a discussion with all the different people about this property, that property, so on. I think I don't think I know the school committee has told me, do not say no to anything. Keep the options on the table. That's been a pretty clear directive. Keep the options on the table. But we want to do this right. This administration wants to do it right. If we have to do something else, and it's not necessarily the best, but it's best for the community, I think we should have that discussion. Yes, sir.
Just to clarify, I think I heard you say, so the school committee open to put one degree of proposal for town meeting, all right?
That is correct. That vote belongs with the school committee, and again, they could have deliberations with the building committee, the selectmen, and all of that, but they control the question, if you will, in terms of their part of the question.
I guess the only thing I would ask is to push as hard as you can from the town perspective. Fortunately, we've all experienced in this town, things just kind of lag, and we do not get done ever. I think there's a commitment, certainly something that you to keep pushing. And,
I've never been known not as a pusher, that's for sure. Sometimes, listen, I think it's important. I think my committee has sent a very clear message. It's my understanding, based on the comments earlier, that we're opening up bids in a couple of weeks for what direction to go in and review with the building committee. That will, get things going even a little quicker. I know that committee is working hard. Believe me, it's another night away from family and friends. And you take it from all routes, but nobody in those committees is being independent necessarily.
We have no choice but to push. We're already sending our kids to Camp Fitberg for fields, we're already busing them. They're not playing on our fields anymore because they're unplayable. So we don't have an option anymore. It's either have 0 home sports at Norton High or do something about it. So that's the point that we're at.
And just to piggyback on that statement, remember, I am charged with Title IX.
Can you just repeat what you just said, because I didn't hear you?
The comment that you made was that we're already going, for example, this past spring we went to Camp Finberg for all of our lacrosse. It's not appropriate for lacrosse. It's a nice field, don't get me wrong, but it's not where we should be going. We've already had problems with practicing out back. We've already had to move kids off the pit field, and some of our football organization knows how that can become. It's a mud pit if it rains at all. So we're already adding to our bottom line cost of operations by having students having to travel. I'm very strong on kids need to be on a bus, travel as a team. I don't need a bunch of 17-year-olds driving all around town all the time. But the other part I was just saying at the end is I'm also responsible to Title IX. I have to be very careful about male and female sports and things like what type of fields they're playing on. So if you have a team on the best field all the time and not the other team, and one happens to be a male team, one's a female, I have to be very cautious of that stuff because I have a responsibility to Title IX. Other questions? So, all of this is on the website. Just go right to the main website, norton.k12.ma.us. Email me, jbayer@norton.k12.ma.us. I'm right on the website. Or the Let's Talk, which is a very direct line. You just choose who you want to. You can be anonymous, so you can send me a letter that says you're crazy. You can say, I have questions. I had a person who reached out to me a couple of days ago, actually led me to do more homework, because I wasn't here for the past, what happened with the bleachers and the track and all that, and how it was funded and not funded. So that's how that question led me to ask my people to do a little digging and see if we could find some actual numbers on a piece of paper that said this is what it was for, this is what it paid for. We actually believe that some of the lights at the high school were, we think, predominantly donated. The poles were sunk in for like $8,500. We can't get replacement parts. There are things we should get as donations and accept and thank people for, and then there are things we just have to say, how long is this going to go for? Can I get 20 years out of this? No. Okay, so it's the only game in town, then I guess you have to say yes. If it's not, then maybe you should rethink accepting it. It's like when I get piano donations at least 3 times a year, and I'm not liked by certain people in town because I always say no. Why? Because if my music teacher plays the piano, it needs to be tuned. And if it needs to be tuned, it probably has broken parts in it. We just had a piano that was donated. It was going to cost me $12,000 to revitalize it. So I bought a brand new one for $15,000. And going to get 20 to 25 years about it, because now every year we're going to have it professionally tuned. That's what you have to do. And that's a crazy story, but that's a factual piece of information. We sometimes have to choose. We want volunteers, we want people to give back and all that stuff, but sometimes we just have to say no to things, unfortunately. Always say yes to money. Sorry. Couldn't resist. Okay, so ask away, feel free, comments. I don't take it personally. Come up with another idea, ask a question. If you have a friend who owes a lot of money, send it my way. We can talk about, believe me, the school committee is looking at naming rights, everything. There must be a good local family that wants to make a nice donation. We can only lease it, the name, for 99 years under state statute, but I'm not going to be here in 99 years. Probably the donor isn't either, so.
You sure you don't want the Dr. Baena Pavilion, right?
No. I can guarantee you there's a joke in the office all the time. I ask anybody and everybody all the time, do not ever name anything after me. It's all about the kids, that's what we're here for, and if I made it, it's a good run. That's all I care about. But, nice name. Got a nice ring. Thanks all very much, everyone.